week's episode of UDSP is brought to you by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, just head on over to netflix.com/GamebreakerTV. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unicorn Dog Shadow Puppet episode 23 for October 28th, 2013. Garrigan, and you're watching Gamebreaker TV. Coming up on today's show, sad news at Carbine, J-Tall, talk some stats, and impromptu live streams. Lots of Q&A, all that more. But first, Mr. Farhan Siddiqui, how are you, sir?
Hello, I'm doing pretty well. Am I sounding a little bit robotic, or is that just go to me being fun?
Nope, you're fine.
Oh, good. Then I'm happy. I'm getting over my cold, but apparently I sound all right. So, ready to go.
And joining us as well, Mr. Mark Taylor. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. You and I will be gallivanting in the Los Angeles area for drinks very soon.
Drinking beers.
Drinking beers. So,
although I will not be hanging out with After Dark.
You got slayed. You got slammed. All right, let's do. All right, so what do we got to talk about today for the WildStar show? So J-Tall talks about PvP and PvE stats, stat differences, I should say, on the forums this week. So first up, so that PvP has 2 stats necessary to be your most optimal in PvP. Basically, PvP offense, deal more damage to players, and PvP defense, take less damage from players. Such that if you are playing against someone in non-PvP gear, say they try to bring in raid gear, you are dealing more damage to them and taking less damage from them, while they take bonus damage from you and deal less damage to you. So kind of an interesting way to put it, but this concept is nothing crazy. It's pretty common, actually, the way they're describing this, pretty much industry standard. But what do you guys think about what do you think about the whole like having 2 stats instead of 1 combined? You guys see a benefit? Is it good, bad? Do you like it?
Mark, do you want to go first?
I think that like you're saying, it's nothing new. In Tor they called it expertise. I forget what they called it in WoW, but they have like an artificial variable or stat that basically will modify the gear, pluses for damage or defense. So again, it's nothing new. I'm not exactly sure from like a min-max standpoint or even a mathematical standpoint if there's any benefit from just tracking it separately in the 2 stats versus having, that expertise or that one singular stat modify things in the background. But the one cool thing about it though is the fact that they do have PvP gear, so that when you're PvPing, you have one specific set of gear to work towards, or one set of stats to kind of work towards. The whole doing one singular set of gear. I can see, I guess, the benefits of it, but I guess there's no gain for it for the folks who become really elite at PvPing. So obviously, the better you are, you get better gear. Does it help you crush noobs? Sure, but that's half the fun, and that's also the rite of passage, right? So I don't think it's anything new. I do think it's kind of cool. But, they're still in beta, so I guarantee they're still kind of figuring it out. And they'll probably, at the end of the day, give it some kind of name,
Farhan, you're kind of a number cruncher.
Yeah.
You're into it. You played SWTOR as well, so you're pretty familiar with the expertise. From a theory crafting standpoint on your end, do you like the granularity of being able to differentiate between the 2?
Yeah, I do, because I think that it plays into the ability. Now, a lot of what my preconceived ideas that I've been coming up with over the time about like how WildStar's PvP will work and gearing in general are sort of out the window with the recent little tidbit that they gave that chip modification for non-crafting is sort of out the window and replaced with some new system that we don't know about. But if they still have the ability to customize your gear a lot, then I think my opinion was that it'll play into the ability to come up with your own team comp and with builds, because you can play up maybe I'm using a lot more offensive abilities or something like that, but so I want to get my defense from my gear. or vice versa. Maybe I want to have a few more utility defensive abilities and then sacrifice that on the gear side. So I like that kind of granularity, and I think it gives a little bit more depth to the whole ability for PvP systems to have some, ability to.
Do you think you're going to be doing that even like on a group guild level, as far as like how like actually sitting and kind of figuring out builds and gear based on that as well?
I think an arena team would definitely want to do that, right? Because especially with the way that the arena system works, where you have multiple respawns, which is something that maybe some people who are just starting to follow the game maybe don't realize, because that was something that they talked about a while back. But instead of it just being one life for every single person, your team has a pool of lives, and you have a certain number of respawns that you can come back into the thing with. So if you want to gear more defensively, maybe you're not using up as many of those spawns, or maybe you're letting one of your more glass cannon-y characters that's on your team able to, use up more of your team's respawns or something like that. So there's a lot of like mechanics in there that I think you're definitely going to want to plan this kind of thing on a team level, rather than it just being sort of like, okay, I'm just going to have whatever has a higher item level or whatever, and then that'll just be enough kind of thing.
So quick question now concerning that. And maybe you can explain it from a programming level, because I'm not a coder. And even from the separate dual stats, or as opposed to that one variable like expertise or something. Explain that part in English. Talk to me like I'm 3. What do you mean when you're saying that the group can take advantage of it, just vice me as an individual PvPer trying to get just the best part or best piece of gear? I guess that's part of it.
Okay, so let me just give it to you from 2 different scenarios, per se. Okay, one, you're just doing like random battlegrounds kind of thing. So you're in a group, you don't really know who you're going to go in with, you don't know what your team comp's going to be exactly, you just want to go in, you want to kill some people, do whatever the objectives are. You're probably going to want a little bit more of a balanced build, right? You want to have some offense, some defense, because you don't necessarily know if you're going to have someone to, keep your back while you're in there. And so you'll also want to be able to kill, whoever you're attacking, because you're not necessarily going to want to just, run around heal-botting someone or whatever. Or protecting them if you're going to be like a tank type character. So what that means is that you're going to have a little bit more of an average thing. You might just pick whatever gear is newest kind of thing, whatever is the highest item level, whatever gives you more item stats across the board. You're going to be more happy with that, because as long as you have more stats, then that's always going to be helpful for you. Now, if you're in a team standpoint, so like I'm thinking arena is probably a little bit more item numbery kind of thing, where you want to fine tune it, versus maybe war plots. Well, war plots you might actually have like a strike team that is like, okay, like when the raid boss comes out. Now, assuming that it's not going to be exactly the same stats as the raid boss from a raid, so you don't need to have like a full raid team to handle it or something. It's going to be a little bit different. Again, assumptions. Who knows exactly how things will work?
Theory crafting helmet. Put it on.
Right, but maybe you want to have like a team that is specifically there to CC the raid boss or something until you can, control it. And so you might have like a whole group that's there with specifically, defensive stats, all these kinds of things, so that they can just control that raid boss and keep it from interfering with your strike plan or whatever it is. But again, going back to the arena standpoint, maybe you want to actually have, so let's say you're doing 3v3 arena. You have a more defensive tank kind of person who's going to be doing a lot more control, and you think, okay, I don't know exactly how many respawns. I'm sure that this is something that's in flux, with design. They're going to see exactly how many kind of respawns a 3v3 match would have. But you're saying your tank, you're probably going to use maybe 1 respawn. Maybe he dies once in the whole time. Whereas your glass cannon DPS, maybe you want to a lot hit a little bit more, or maybe your healer. So maybe your tank then is supposed to, okay, I'm going to have a lot more deflection or whatever other kinds of stats, and PvP defense, of course, however much you can have, and then, you're going to build yourself a little bit more customized to that. You wouldn't be able to do as much damage necessarily, and you probably wouldn't be as useful in a more general role, but you've specialized each person, and so you work better as a unit rather than just everyone going with, medium stats across the board and then sort of having the person that's specialized. Because if you have medium stats across the board, then maybe that glass cannon person on the other side who did specialize, maybe they can just cut through that and kill you. And even if they died, it's not a big deal, because their team planned in their strategy that, okay, this person, it's okay if they die occasionally as our glass cannon, because our other people won't die.
So the critical thing that you then brought up, though, is the whole fact that you're going to have to, or Carbine's going to have a strategic plan on how to have ranked PvP, right, almost from day one. Otherwise, trying to do this from the pug is going to be impossible, right?
Right. I mean, that kind of thing is, again, something that would be more like for pre-made teams for Arena, which I know that they have. They've said that they will have rankings. They'll have, rated, basically. You'll have a rating, and then you'll go up and down rating based on how the enemy is rating, like an elo system, basically. So that kind of thing will be in the game for something that would be hardcore enough that you would actually have that kind of planning. And then they have like the random thing for Battlegrounds.
And I don't think it doesn't sound like the whole system is going to be so complicated that other gamers who are kind of a little bit more casual will get lost in this kind of two-stat system. So hopefully it's pretty like easy and basic for them to understand. But I could see how a lot of the hardcore PvPers will completely be gearing around those specific numbers and skilling.
But Gary, am I maybe just reaching here? But I mean, I guess that's kind of the hidden, sinister, cool awesomeness of this, because at face value it is very simple, but if you I guess look at it kind of like Farhan does, there's actually a lot of strategy behind it. So it's approachable to, folks like, I guess, me, who are just not thinking in those terms, yet to people who are really experienced, who really have
you're gonna get face rolled.
Yeah.
But isn't that like, I mean, like the top end PvPers who are theory crafters in any game steamroll you. Like they face roll everybody. That's why they're that good. So I don't think it makes it any different. It just gives them, you're either that type of player or you're not. I'm not. Like I'm just gonna, I'm gonna go look for some builds, things like that. Farhan's gonna be over here with spreadsheets crunching numbers and he's gonna kick my ass. It's just the way it is.
Farhan's gonna become my new best friend when the game comes out, because I'm gonna be like, can you basically give me a
did you ever watch Buildcast? Did you ever watch Buildcast? That's where we found Farhan. Farhan used to be on a show specifically about theory crafting Guild Wars 2 PvP, and that's it. He would come with charts and numbers, and him and Ed would go crazy. Yeah, watch out. If you're not on his team, you're gonna lose. Yeah. So I like the system though, and I like it because I don't think it's going to be so. Like I said, I don't think it's going to be so complicated that Mark and I don't understand it. But at the same time, it gives you that extra layer of granularity. It's gonna pay off if you pay attention.
So this is part of what I was saying though, because I think that is something that they ran into where they were realizing that it's a little bit too complex for the average gamer to handle some of that. So that's why they said that we're replacing the whole chip modification for non-crafters with some other system that we don't know about exactly yet. So I'm hoping that it still has the ability to have some of that specific customization in there, but we'll have to see exactly how much you'll be able to do. Because before you could actually, you were choosing every single stat on your gear, except for like some lock sockets or something like that. But it was a really heavy layer of I want these stats on my gear, not just like like extra gems maybe you were customizing in other games or enchants or something like that. You're literally picking the whole set of this specific stat and this specific stat and so forth.
So when the next system comes out, are you going to write a new application for it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is one of the things that I don't know if everyone knows about this, but like for the old system, it was actually complicated enough that I was like, okay, this is a little hard to do. And as my day job, I basically do educational media design, right? I develop apps and simulations and things like that. So I was like, okay, I'll just make a JavaScript applet thing that lets people play around with the system to see how you can customize stats and stuff. And I got pretty good response from that, but it's complicated, right? So a lot of people are like, this is sort of going over your head kind of thing. So I think that's what Carbine's realizing, and so they want to just tone that down a little bit.
So
but it's still there for crafters. So that's
I'll
cool.
test it for you to make sure that you have the dumbed down effect. So you have the beta tester to normalize.
Give it to Mark and I. Mark and I will do the UI UX and provide feedback. And we're just like, no, this is dumb. Just give me a build. Thank you. Tell me where to get my gear. Okay. All right. Next up, talked about rating a little bit. It said rating also has stats necessary to be your most optimal in the raid. Strike through, hit DPS, deflect, critical, defense, tank, and recovery, mana focus, regen, healer. These are pretty much required to be an effective raider. Again, they're not exactly redefining the genre, which is, I think, a good thing. Pretty much standard stuff here. I don't think we've heard any of these names, though. Have we? Have we heard their names before?
We've heard them in tidbits, but not with like a lot of context about exactly what they mean. So, back in June, basically, one of the econ system developers was posting on WildStar Central forums and basically giving like a rundown, like this is what level 50 gear would look like with the whole chip modification thing. And this was part of the problem, I think, was that they've, even without the game in front of you, people were having concerns about this, and then so they were like, okay, let's just give you some examples about how what's going on, how some gear would be good, how some gear would be bad, because back then, WildStar had this system where basically a lot of gear would drop, and so you'd really need to do a lot of customization before that gear would be optimal for your your build if you were doing raiding or whatever. You'd have to change some chips out. You'd have to see, okay, like I want this item, but I only want it for the chip inside of it. I don't actually want the whole base. And I read a lot of the forum posts and go between the lines, and I'm like theory crafting, doing all this stuff. So, yeah.
Boom.
Basically, back then, we saw, so like Gortok, basically, that was the developer who was posting, would say, okay, maybe strike through would be a really useful. It's the only useful stat for DPS stat for a tank, because okay, it's hit. You want to be able to hit the enemy in order to get whatever threat you need. Whereas they don't need, the crit or whatever. And so, we've heard some of these terms before, but this is like where we're first getting, okay, this is pretty standard. Okay, you have like, a hit stat, you have a defense stat that stops you from being crit, you have mana regen. So, pretty across the board standard.
Do you think the roles you put besides each of these stats are just a guideline, or do you think that they're actually specifically what they're for?
I think that's what it sounds like, especially like with the recovery. So it's like recoveries, mana regen, focus regen, and we're going to talk about the live stream in a second. But just like I freeze framed, like every time there was moused over an item, I was freeze framing it, and basically, like okay, so recovery was actually listed on one of those items. It was like mana recovery rating, and so I was like, okay, so it's definitely mana is a spell slinger stat. Got that info from freeze framing. Yeah, I do the boring stuff. So you don't have to.
Let me ask a question real quick though, relative to PvP and even possibly the PvP gear. But one thing Tor did, and I never noticed this in any MMO until I played Tor, but I've been told that they did it in WoW and possibly other MMOs, was the so let's say you're a tank, so obviously your biggest stat is whatever you need for defense so that you can be a meat shield, and if you're like a DPSer, then you need whatever is going to give you the most DPS, and so on. But normally there's like, in my mind, you're going to get like this linear trajectory of, just increasing more and more strength or more and more constitution to be a better tank. Yet, like in Tor and WoW and other games, like you'd get up to a certain level and then all of a sudden they'd like change.
Caps,
and now
right?
there's other stats that you have to build out to be more well balanced for level cap or for rating. So relative to what they've kind of mentioned here, do you think they're just going to have a linear scale, or do you see that they might have the potential to kind of just say, okay, you up to level, and there's 50 levels, so up to like level 30 you get strength, and I'm throwing these out because I can't remember the names of their stats, and then at level 30 to level 40 you got to get this other stat, and you know what I mean? Do you see that being an issue? And Gary, jump in on this one, because like I said, it's kind of a...
I'm going to have to Farhang. He's probably got some charts and graphs on this as well.
I did almost. So, I don't know exactly how much of this has changed since I talked to Gortok, because he basically was nice enough to let me like ask him some questions about itemization before I built that tool out. And so one of the things he was saying is that, as you level up, you're going to have more stats on your gear to choose from. Now, each of those stats will be pulling from the same item pool, but then like the more stats that are available on an item, the more bonus it gets. So basically, like, if an item of the same item level has 3 stats versus 2 stats, the 3-stat item is splitting the same amount of itemization points between 3 things. So you'd expect the numbers to be lower, but there's a little bit of a modifier in there to make it not so bad. Where I don't want a ton of stats on my gear. I want just to focus in on just the defense or whatever as a tank, like you were saying.
So then that's possibly the way to specialize your tune.
Yeah, maybe. Now, one of the things that sort of concerned me when I read this, and I mean maybe it's a silly concern, but one thing I was wondering is, so we're going to get to this especially in the next quote, but if they're trying to differentiate rating gear from other PvE gear by saying, okay, you need more of these rating stats, like defense, critical, okay, that's probably going to stop tanks from getting crit, right? And that's important for tanks. And hit, would be for the damager. stat. And mana recovery, of course, that's a little bit more normal, but specifically between hit and defense, like you were saying, in other games you have these certain thresholds, right? Like, I need this much hit, and then I'm done with hit because I'm guaranteed to hit the boss, kind of thing. And that's an important stat for a rating DPS, because if you're not hitting, then it doesn't matter how much strength or whatever you have. If you're not hitting, then you're doing nothing. So that's why it's always a very important stat for rating. Whereas for small group, maybe it's not as important because they have a smaller hit cap, and this is something like World of Warcraft and other games have done, where they have a different hit cap for the rating than they do for the smaller group content, and that just makes it easier to do the smaller group content. You don't have to have as much gear with just like the hit and other stuff that's a little bit harder to understand. Now my concern is that how do they continue to differentiate though? Like as you go from one tier to another in harder bosses, going from the first tier rating to the second tier rating. Do I actually need more hit now? Do I need more deflection to stop from being crit? And that's something that a lot of games have struggled with. A lot of the time they just say, no, you don't, because it's a pain in the ass to message to the player, right? Before, 7.5% or whatever was enough hit, and I was good. But now, against this boss, I need more. How do you do that in the UI? How do you explain it to players? And I'm curious to see what Carbine's going to do, because if they're specifically trying to say that, okay, these stats are the ones that are going to differentiate rating gear from small group PvE gear, and both of those paths are supposed to be, parallel, they should both get better over time, but they should stay separate, then does that mean that the amount of hit that you need as you keep going is important? And so, how do they message that to players? How do they make that clear in the UI? Those are the big problems with having that kind of thing.
God, I'm learning so much. I'm learning so much. I like this.
But that little part, though, like I said, I never really paid attention to until I played Tour. That is the critical differentiator between being able to be an elite person, whatever your class is, in a raid or PvP, and just being able to go and raid. You know what I mean? Those are the folks that are going to be able to mitigate enough damage, as a tank, and be able to one-shot the boss versus, wiping 5-6 times. And it's just that little change in the numbers that is really which the separating bar between the elite players and the non, which, that's where min-maxing becomes important. Again, I don't really have the brain power or the focus to figure that out, and that's the reason why I know that it exists, so I'm smart enough to ask people like Farhan or dudes in my guilds that do that,
I think it's really interesting too, because I saw Dular in chat even said like most of these discussions like happen at max level, and for me in my play style, like with people, that's the truth. It's like usually these things don't even come up until max. But I'm wondering, like Farhan, when you're doing like, are you having these conversations like all throughout the entire leveling period? Like,
I mean, like, I don't optimize my hit while I'm leveling up because it's going to be pointless once I level, and then I ding, and then now I'm missing again. I just try to go for whatever's better as I'm leveling up. For PvP, it's a little bit different because that is one of the things I like to do. Is I like to PvP as I'm leveling up. Especially in Star Wars, I thought PvP while leveling up was actually better than at Endgame, which was maybe a little bit weird, but that was how I felt. That I felt like it was more fun while leveling up. And there I actually paid more attention to my stats while I was leveling up. Then once I got to the end and I got to Endgame where it was all grindy, then I was just like, this is not fun anymore. So I just, I can do all this math and stuff while the game itself is fun for me. But once I get to the point where it's like a grind and I'm just not enjoying it as much, then all of a sudden my motivation to actually think that hard is just gone. Right.
So I guess that's the difference between different types of players, right? Because I don't know about you, Mark, but I'm more of the type of player, like I kind of just do my build around like play style more than like min-maxing stuff. Because if I don't like the way I'm like what I'm playing and having fun, I can't let the numbers dictate my build and how I'm going to play, because if I don't like that style of play, I just don't want to play. But I mean, I totally understand how min-maxers like let the numbers kind of dictate the entire game for them, because there is, it's almost like, you're gonna practice, martial arts or something, and you're just gonna practice a certain style, and you're going to learn that style, and you're gonna be really good at that style.
I mean, the only reason why I bring it up is because, like you, I'm the same way. I just want to play, and I think I'm the smartest guy in the room if I'm by myself. Trying to figure out how to build my tune as I level, and I'm normally okay. But it's when you start PvPing and you start getting wrecked regularly, that's when I'm like, okay, now I need to go talk to different folks in my guild and try to figure out how do I min-max so that I can kind of be elite,
Or
in
we're just
PvP.
really bad
Wow.
at video
Wow.
games. Watch me tonight at 9 PDT. Try and play Battlefield 4 and get my ass whooped. Yeah.
Hey, well, but
Are you
part of
going to be
like
with
what
the
you guys?
Are you going to be with the Gamebreaker Nation now?
I think so. Whoever's, yeah. I mean, we're going to be in the Mumble chat. So whoever's, I don't know how many people are playing BF4, but yeah, we're live streaming tonight BF4 with the launch. So whoever's there.
All right, you're going to make me get this game, aren't you?
It's up to you, man. I mean, I'm playing. I got a couple people playing. We're going to be playing.
I beta tested it, and it is awesome. So I'm going to do what I got to do. But
Come watch me get my ass handed to me.
To what you guys were saying a minute ago about like, okay, so play style being important for influencing how you play. That was actually a big reason why I got into Guild Wars 2 build. Like the idea of it and getting into build cast and trying to do that was because I felt like even if certain builds like really quickly within the Guild Wars 2 community became like, this is standard meta, right? Like, okay, I want a Mesmer with Portal or whatever, and other kinds of things like that. 100 blades, whatever it was called, warrior kind of thing, where they just hit you a lot with the great sword. All of those kinds of builds became meta pretty quickly, and so it was sort of figured out. But I liked Guild Wars 2 because I thought that it had the potential to give you a lot more room within your team to build out certain builds and sort of be like, okay, this is how I want to play. I want to play with these abilities. Can I make a build around that? And I thought it had a lot of potential. I'm also hoping that WildStar has that kind of potential with the limited action set. I hope that between the limited action set and the ability to customize gearing to a higher degree than what I thought that Guild Wars allowed, I'm hoping that it'll, open that up to having a lot of viable builds. Even if I know that I talk a lot about min-maxing and theory crafting and all this stuff, but I still play in a way that isn't completely optimal, right? Yeah, theory crafting. If it's a little bit more fun, I'll play a weird build rather than playing, because I like to figure out that build myself and sort of feel clever, like okay, these synergies work, like these kind of things work well together, rather than just going with exactly what somebody told me to build. That's why I like coming up with it, is because I feel like this is something I earned myself by figuring that out.
But when I'm clever, I'm just getting owned. So I think your clever is better than my clever.
He's building programs for clever. I mean, he's like programming stuff. Of course he's going to be clever. He's a computer.
He is a computer.
I'm a Cylon right here.
He's a pewter. Let me throw up this last quote here, because it kind of ties into everything we're talking about as well. So finally, they said, solo small group doesn't really need any stats other than the base stats to be effective. Thank God for you, Mark and I. You'll need far less strike through, deflect, critical, and recovery than you would in raiding. This allows us to tune the solo gear to be more effective for soloing while lacking key stats necessary to raid. So I guess presumably as well, like small group content is where you're going to be getting your starter raid gear, though.
Yeah, certainly. Again, this is one of the things I was wondering, though. If tiers of content have different, strike through caps that you need, or deflect critical caps or whatever, how is that going to be communicated to the player? Because that is, like, okay, if, whatever, some level of small group play is your entrance into raiding, then that implies that there's going to be some of those stats in there, or maybe this is something that crafters come in, right? Maybe you get some crafting materials, and that's how you get enough hit to start raiding or something like that. So we don't know exactly how that's going to go, but it does excite me a lot, and this is something that I like to mention a lot, because I get like emails or messages about this, about like, oh, the solo play is silly. Like, why is WildStar or Carbine trying to have a whole progression path? And something that I actually feel really is important in WildStar is that a lot of the endgame story, like the lore and the ability to actually tell the main overarching story, is actually told at endgame in this small groups or solo content kind of thing. So you're going to see a lot of the major like reveals from Elden, I think, not in the raids, but actually in these kinds of small group instances or solo instances, or however, maybe it's not even an instance, who knows. But it's in that progression path. So
do you think it's smart that they kind of like hold that back and kind of wait though for that? I kind of do think it's actually smart that they're going to implement a lot of that story into this more solo and small group content, because obviously, let's be honest, that's the content that most of the players are going to get through. So the majority of the players will get that. But I do think it's super important that they hook you in really early with some of this stuff, like literally from level 1. Because if they don't hook me like early on, I'm not even going to care about that max level, like small solo group content, especially from an RPG standpoint, right? I'm much more of into that. Like they've got to hook me story wise to really even get me to that point.
I mean, one cool thing though, just on a story level, in the fact that, I mean, if I parse what they've been saying, they're going to kind of reveal what happened to the Elden, or at least a good amount of what happened in the Elder game. You know, so once you hit level cap, level 50, you'll figure it out either through raids or the quests that begin at that level. Well, from my perspective, the benefit of that is that you don't necessarily have to have this, like, you ever seen Gilligan's Island? You know, you don't have to have this long perpetuating story where you never get off the island. You see what I'm trying to say? No matter what happens, you just never get off the island. You're just always screwed. Or like Lost. Lost is a modern example. You're just always hosed. You never get off the island. The greatness of it is that they could actually tell you exactly what happened at level cap, and then through an expansion, take you to a whole other planet and give you a whole new adventures and add like 10 more levels, and it's still a whole entire new thing. They're not stuck. But you see what I'm trying to say? They're not stuck. They can create new stuff and use everything that they've had before as a building block. They don't have to be using the Elden as a crutch from that point forward. So it just completely does not hamstring them moving forward.
All right, we got a bunch of questions this week to start answering. But first, I want to tell you guys about Shutterstock. If you guys have a website, a guild website, a YouTube page, you absolutely need Shutterstock. I guarantee you your website could look better, or your creative project. Maybe you need stock photography, illustrations, vectors, video clips, whatever you need. Shutterstock's got it, and we use it every single day right here at Gamebreaker, and I'm so happy to have these guys on as sponsors. Love, love, love the Shutterstock. I was looking through some artwork past couple days here. I love this guy's artwork. This guy's got some great stuff. So again, we were looking for like backdrops and sort of fun, whimsical, like, you know, little knights and things like that. This is one artist. I love, you find like something you like, the style. I mean, you bring these in. These are Adobe Illustrator vector form. These are in vector formats. All of these will come in separate. You can scale these to any size you need without losing any resolution. You can do whatever you need with these. You could leave these in your little line up there, create a banner from them. You could make them icons and individual like things on your website. Maybe you want to add like some sort of caricature of yourself to your YouTube page. That could be quite important. Maybe you don't want to use your face because nobody wants to look at your dumb face. Maybe you use a little knight. Maybe you use a little knight. That's just one aspect. I mean, there's so many different things here. You know, all kinds of medieval stuff. Great for guild websites, fantasy landscapes. Maybe you're doing like an 8-bit thing. There's a lot of 8-bit artists on here doing all kinds of little stuff. Really cool stuff. I mean, you can just imagine what you're doing. Maybe you're creating a game. That's another thing you could be doing. Maybe you're doing like an iOS app, or you're doing like an adventure game. Who knows? Maybe you can't create all the art assets. I'm telling you, go to Shutterstock.com and start looking up icons and things like that. You could find tons of sets of 8-bit and not even 8-bit graphics like that you could use for all your little characters and stuff like that. I want to save you guys 25% off. All you got to do is go over and make an account. You don't even need to use a credit card or anything like that. Just sign up today, make a free account, go to Shutterstock.com. You can start looking through, sorting, and saving your images. And when you're ready to make a purchase, and there's a couple different packages for every price point and everyone's budget, all you got to do is use the promo code Gamebreaker10 on checkout, and you will immediately receive 25% off on your account. So support Gamebreaker by supporting our sponsors, and we love having the Shutterstock on. So make sure to use that promo code Gamebreaker10. All right, so we got a bunch of questions here from the community. You guys keep sending them in. We need a bunch of them today. We do more than usually we do like 3. I don't know how many we got here, but let's start with this. Hank Pendleton says, have we heard anything about a collector's edition for WildStar? Are you guys a fan of them in general? I've got a bunch sitting on my shelf from games that I ended up not playing for too long. I think I have a problem. You and me both, Hank. I've got a wall in the back. Wait, do I have one here? Yeah, here's one. I got just hanging
Where's
around.
Where's your Final Fantasy?
This is the Warhammer one. Just hanging around. It's not shutting down, so... I don't know. First of all, have we heard anything? We haven't heard anything about collector's edition.
Nothing.
Kind of early. Kind of early.
We just know their subscription model, and that's about it.
Are you guys a fan of them in general? Do you buy them?
I love them personally. Just not necessarily for the stuff that you get, but I'll admit it. I like it because normally you get early access, so I'm paying to try to get into early access. And
Do you like
I
the
got no
stuff
shame
in it, or
my
you just
game.
don't even care?
It that if I don't well.
I don't know what.
Not back. Grabbing something.
What is he getting? Like Star Wars statue or something? That's what I'm guessing. Is it Malgus?
There goes my general.
There he is.
That's about the extent of what I do with it. It just sits on my shelf collecting dust.
I'm worse. I don't even take the stuff out of the box. I was just wondering, like, I like the stuff in there, but I leave it all in. It's like all intact. I don't actually. No, that's a lie. My Guild Wars 2 one, I actually have Rillock over there sitting on a table. But for the most part, I leave everything in there. I go through the book, and I like the World of Warcraft ones. I gotta say, I think they do a fantastic job. I don't know, Farin, do you buy them? Are you a fan of them?
I haven't bought them in a while, just because I realized that I don't touch them like ever. Because the last collector's edition that I bought wasn't actually for an MMO. It was for a console game. I don't even remember which one. But I remember afterward thinking that I didn't actually even take the stuff out of the box besides the game, and then I left it there. So I realized that this is a silly waste of my money. But what I do actually like to do then, like mentally, what I do is I take those funds and I put them towards other swag for the games that I like, and I just end up buying those directly. And I feel like I make my own collector's edition by just buying, neat stuff.
I feel like that's mostly what you do with collector stuff. Like if you collect comic books, you read it, you put it in a bag, you put it in a box. If you collect statues, you buy it, you take it out, you put it on a shelf, it sits, it collects stuff. That's what collectors do. What is a Star Citizen? What is that? Why don't I
I'm
have
a rear admiral in Star Citizen. Here goes my other swag.
Where do you
So
get
I paid
that? I want that.
$225 for that 4-man ship, which everyone in my guild likes to break my balls saying that it's a pyramid Ponzi scheme. The game will never come out, kind of bullshit.
Oh wait, they're going for 27 million. They just broke 25 million on that game. Crazy.
Not to get off topic. I mean, that's gonna be a fun game, but I buy the collector's editions. I mean, if I could get the digital download version of the collectible or the collector's edition, in which case I still get the early access, I'll settle for that. I don't need the swag, but Mark Taylor, I'm going for the early access. That's the entire reason why I do it.
Mark Taylor, pay to win. Next.
Pay to win. Cred. Buying 5 of them day one.
All right, next up, this is from L. McCarthy. Says, is Carbine going to be the developer that realizes it's 2013 or 2014, and they have to launch with an authenticator? Isn't it 100% needed, or has it just been scaremongering for the most part? Is it common sense enough to stay safe? No, it is not common. Common sense is not enough to stay safe. Use a damn authenticator. Yes, it should be. I mean, I don't think it's mandatory that a developer say you have to, but don't come crying to them when your account gets hacked and you've lost. Yes, I have had an account hacked. That's true. I had an SOE account hacked. And every single MMO player that I know has been hacked at one point or another. Everyone.
One thing to do to avoid being hacked, and it's not a perfect method, but what you can do is if you're going to have a password, make sure it has uppercase, lowercase, and special characters, and make sure it's at a minimum of 14 characters. If you can do all 3 or 4 of those things, then statistically it can be broken, but it is really friggin' hard.
More importantly, use a different password for each thing. That's way more important, because if the database gets hacked and you have like your one really complicated password that you use everywhere because you're like, this is the most amazing password ever, no one will ever get it, and then some site's bad security settings is what lets it out or something, then you're done basically.
I mean, I think that the thing is why I don't think you'll see this like required or mandatory, because I don't think they're ever going to include it in the box. Because I mean, now a lot of people do have Android or iOS smartphones and you can download an app. Sure, they'll probably have that, but there are still a lot of people out there who probably don't have a smartphone that would need a physical authenticator. Those things can't be that cheap when you have to buy like $1 million or 2 million, or WoW's case, like, could you imagine if I'm just saying, like, if you needed like 12 million on hand to supply everybody? Like, that's a lot of money. So I don't think you'll see them making it mandatory, but just be smart. If you have a smart device, if you've got an Android or iOS phone and they've got an app, you pretty much have no freaking like choice other than to just download that app and use it.
Just do it.
To tie the two questions together, isn't that one of those things that some companies are doing these days with the collector's editions? They just give you the authenticator in there.
Yes.
That way you have a physical one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Which is great, but then again, the collectors, they can probably make up for it in cost, right? It's going to be a couple extra bucks, so they kind of can throw it in there. So that's part of the whole deal. Yeah, totally. I just hate the physical ones. You always lose them and stuff.
Yeah, I like the mobile authenticators when they have them, and then I like to just use a really easy password, because I feel like if I have the authenticator, then I'm good. I can have like a terrible password for my game, and I've actually never been hacked, but I always actually do have an authenticator. So I attribute it to the fact that I always run an authenticator on those games.
All right, next up, this one in from Toby James. He says, I was never a big fan of achievements, but recently ArenaNet made achievements actually worth something by unlocking items and gear through them. Would you like to see Carbine take the hint, or do meaningless numbers give your lives some worth? Anybody achievement whores?
Yeah, it does nothing for me.
I don't really care either, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, unless the achievements will unlock something that's going to make me better than Farhan. Like if I unlock like, I don't know, 70 things, and now I've got plus 2 more, hit points or something, then maybe I care about. But just
that's what Guild Wars 2 did. I mean, gear and items. I mean, you can unlock gear and items through it.
Yeah, I mean, if it amounts to me actually getting something that's a useful stat that makes me better, kind of like, remember holocrons in that other game?
That other game. I don't want to talk about those. Don't talk about holocrons.
I would actually go through that pain to get those extra points so I could be that much better in a raid.
But then you felt like you had to, which was annoying.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you're talking about data.
And you're like, I don't want to do it again. And you're
Justin Lowe used to complain vehemently on your other show specifically about that. You're
talking about datacrons, not holocrons. You're confusing
datacrons. I stand corrected.
Yeah, that's a big differentiator. Holocrons were the grind beyond grinds. I don't know. Farhan, are you an achievement whore?
I like the cosmetic rewards, but I usually don't ever use any of the ones that are easy to get, because I feel like if everybody has the thing, then it's no longer important to me. Like, it instantly loses its appeal. So I don't know, if it's something that you can work towards. One of the weird things about Guild Wars is achievement that I don't really understand, is that the number just keeps going up because you have like the monthly and daily achievements. I know a lot of people like that, but I actually feel like that made me instantly not care about it, because I like the overall number in like World of Warcraft or other games, because I just feel like, okay, this is my progress through different parts of the game. But when you have like daily and monthly things like adding to that, then I feel like, okay, now it's like an endless grind, because
I feel like the FPS world that kind of like brought that on. Like, I forget which one, but I feel like there was like a Call of Duty game where all of a sudden it was just like, you logged in, achievement, ding. You press the X button, achievement, ding. Like they were just like, it's true. Like they just started dishing them out for almost everything you did, and you'd get like a gajillion of them every time you played the game. And then MMO started following suit, just jam packing them. Where they used to just be like stretched out with these long term like sort of goals that took weeks or months to do. I'm a fan of the old school stuff. I'm just old. All right, next up, Natasha Frost. How much are you dreading Carbine randomly deciding they could be an esport as well? I'm seeing a theme in the industry at the moment. I agree. Just
I don't dread it. I mean, why would you care? I mean, negatively. Seriously, why? How does that negatively impact you? Should they decide that they want to do that?
I guess because from my perspective is I've seen other game companies put a lot of effort and focus on trying. They're determined at some point that there's an initiative to make their game an esport, when the game just does not call to be an esport whatsoever. And that's a lot of time, money, developing like all kinds of stuff. PlanetSide 2, I'm looking at you. Looking at a game
Margaret
that just has...
Crone would not be happy with you right now.
Hey, I'm just telling her like it is. Is it taking off as an esport? No. So are they going to eventually get there? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I think the best esports games have either A, been that from day one, or the community naturally turns them into something, and then they can reinforce it and push it along. But I think to just try and use esport flavor of the month, like we have to be a part of that, I don't think you have to. Like, I just don't think you have to be. It's okay not to be an esport.
I think Warplots could be a really engaging esport if they allow you to set it up correctly. Because, I mean, in order, in my mind, to be a good esport, you have to have something that can definitely be its own bounded instance, right? Not something that's an open world construct, which I guess that's probably one of the problems with maybe PlanSide, right? So if you look at the war plots, it's an instance, it's 2 guilds, it's a perfect scenario, and then I would assume that the fight would take a fairly decent amount of time, kind of like a football game. So if they actually permit you to have a ghost cam, it might even be a cam, an account that you pay for, or an account that you can create. And they've had that discussion because I've actually asked them, and they're looking at it, the feasibility of it. That would enable fan sites and media sites to be able to create the play-by-play of it, and that would be an interesting construct to watch 40 on 40 fight. I mean, other than that, the only other reasonable thing
really
they could do would be PvP.
I don't know if it would. Arenas. I don't know if that would be a good experience.
I know that a lot of people liked watching stuff like Guild Wars 1's, like guild battles and things like that, and they liked spectating it. And I don't know if see, the thing is, what do you call an esport? At what point do you call it an esport, and at what point is it just like, okay, this is a little bit of spectating?
And the other thing is, what's
PvP
a lot? Like, what's a lot? Like, now you're talking like, you want to play you turn on Twitch and 1,000 people are going to watch like X Game Esports. Like, that's nothing at this point. Like, you need to they're looking now for these, 2, 3, 400,000, 5, a million. Like, that's where it's at this point. So I don't know how many people are really going to tune in to watch a 40 on 40, dub style, thing with some shoutcasters. I don't think a lot of people are going to watch that.
You've also got to be careful though, when you're just talking to game companies. I remember I was in San Diego at Carbine Studios, and I basically got yelled at by one of their PR folks by saying, do not talk about esports. And that's the reason why, we basically boycotted their games, because of remember, was it End of Nations?
Mm-hmm.
They were I had a conversation with the lead developer, and he was like, yeah, I think that would be a great instantiation. So we started thinking about, hey, we could probably follow this and try to promote it as that. And then it kind of came out like they didn't want to do that. They were like, oh, we want to make it the most open thing to everybody. So you got to be kind of careful even who you bring up esports to, much less the fact that you actually try to make it become a reality, right?
It's a heated subject. There's a lot of emotions around it, especially when you have a community that actually. The thing that I think hurts the game the most is when you have a community. When developers say that they're going to support an esports movement, and the community, some of the people in the community actually try it, and then the developer just doesn't follow through, and that just makes people feel like they're betrayed. It makes a lot of the people who don't like esports, they feel like yeah, we were right kind of thing. And that's happened a lot.
Well, who likes esports? Like, what esport is out there that you actually like to watch? Because I got to be honest, I look at LOL, which is super popular, and I find it completely boring. I don't know. I just don't look at esports. I mean, so what esport would you even say is good that you like to watch?
But that's like
that you enjoy watching.
You are I'm not gonna say you're in the minority, but it's just not your thing.
I'm completely in the minority. I will admit it. I will totally admit that I'm in the minority. I have been to E3. I've been to PAXs. I've been to Comic Cons where there are actual LOL, was it Major League Gaming?
You're obviously not a huge league player. If you were a big league player and you were into league, you'd be into it.
And I just sit there and I'm looking at it going, okay, I'm not Korean, so I guess I don't understand the whole click count thing. It just doesn't look fun to me. What esport is out there that you find engaging?
I love
League
watching
of Legends,
StarCraft too.
StarCraft, League.
Yeah.
Soon to be Gamebreaker Hearthstone tournaments. But that's a perfect example. But that's a perfect example though. There's no spectator mode yet, at least in Hearthstone. But you're starting to see people kind of take it under their wing. We're going to.
People are streaming it though. People are streaming Hearthstone.
Yeah, and we're gearing up to do our first tournament. We're going to start doing tournaments with shoutcasters and the whole thing. And it's like I said, I'm more of a fan when the community kind of takes it on their own a little bit, and you see some traction there, and then the developer can come in and help that happen, rather than the other way around, just force a square peg into a circle. That's what I think a lot of companies for some reason in 2013 felt that was like a pillar that they had to have. We've got to be an esport. It's it's not just going to. Not everything is going to be a competitive game.
Like 10 years ago, everyone was like, we need an e-business. We need.
And PvP was even PvP is another thing that I talk about with MMOs. I don't think every MMO has to have PvP in it. I I don't get it. Like something like Final Fantasy, like they're just it looks bad. Like just it's okay. The majority of your player base is probably PvE centric. Like I don't think every game needs to be everything. I don't know why developers are stuck in this mode of we're making an MMO, so it's got to cater to every single person on the planet.
To WildStar's point, though, the developers, like Carbine, has said that, you know, as far as esports goes, like they're on a very hands-off kind of approach to it. Like if somehow, some way, the community makes it into an esport, then they'll start supporting it. But for the most part, they're just like, okay, we want to have fun PvP, we want to have fun arenas, fun war plots, fun battlegrounds, and that's our focus for PvP. It's not about making it competitive.
That makes sense. The players will.
I'm happy with that.
If it adheres to that sort of competitive style play, believe me, people, gamers, Twitch, all that stuff will naturally sort of happen, and you see it happening. Pay attention to it. All right, moving on.
Quick question. Do you have any Hearthstone keys to hand out?
Nope.
Okay, I thought I'd ask.
Self-centered co-host. Jim Croft asks, says, I'm looking forward to creating my EverQuest next character in EverQuest. Wait, is this the right show? Not sure. He says, I'm looking forward to creating my EverQuest next character in EverQuest next landmark this winter. Although that sentence sounds really dumb. Do you think Carbine could do something similar? People love playing Barbie. No.
EQ2 did that. You could create what your tune looked like and the name before the game came out.
I mean, do you think they're going to release a character creator beforehand, I guess? I mean, I guess they could release a character creator.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the character customization in WildStar isn't actually at the character customization screen. It's like in your gear that you choose to costume or whatever. It's in your house and how you do that stuff. So I don't think that it would be like something that you could actually do without actually playing the game. If they just put a character creator out there, I don't think it's a priority or anything that. Yeah, I don't foresee them doing it just because it's developer time away from a game that they're furiously trying to get out like soon. But I don't know.
What do you think, Mark? You think you're going to release something early?
I doubt they're going to release something like this. No, I don't see it.
All right, last up from Roddy Jensen. Roddy says, what do you think of the hype for WildStar right now? I'm kind of worried that Elder Scrolls is going to overshadow it. Kind of going to say it is overshadowing it.
I think that's by design, though, right? I mean,
it's Elder Scrolls. I mean, let's be honest. The hype for WildStar is not that big right now. Let's be honest. People watching this show are hyped, and I know you're all yelling at me right now in chat. I don't even have to look, but I could just see all the caps just flying by. F you, Ganon. We're hyped. I know you're hyped. You're watching this show, but they haven't. There's not much hype for WildStar. Let's be honest. I mean, I'll be honest. We the train's got to start moving out of the station at some point. The PR team's got to pick it up a notch. We got to start seeing some. We need a little bit more than the WildStar Wednesday. We need, it's got to start picking up.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right, but I mean, think about it. It's a completely new IP. Elder Scrolls is, 20 years old? How many versions of the game have come out? They've got a lot of hype to live up to, right? Same thing with, the whole EQ Next thing. That game's, 2-3 years out, maybe? And that's already overshadowing this game.
Sure. But that means that WildStar's got to try 10 times harder, because now they've got to prove to all these people who don't even know what the word WildStar is right now. What the hell is this thing that I don't care about? Oh, Elder Scrolls? I played that game. That game's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to try that game.
I think the benefit is they can't disappoint anybody because they've got no...
Oh, yes, they can.
They don't have... Other than all of us and all of the folks that are in chat who really, truly care, the average gamer who's fickle as hell, they can't be disappointed as nearly as bad. Like, look at Tor. How do you take BioWare, like one of the most epic development companies in the world, and take Star Wars, the best IP ever, collide them together based on what they did with Tor, and fail like they did?
Because the MMO industry is kind of like going to the craps table.
But that's my point. Like by them not meeting the expectations based on simple, basic things, nerds raged. People got pissed off. Whereas this game is hovering below the surface, and it will come up, and I think it's going to be a slow burn of success. I mean, I mean, you can take that as a note. You can mark it. You can take a picture of it, take video of it. It's going to be on the internet, so it'll be there forever. But the point is I think it's going to be a slow burn of success as opposed to just this complete shot. And they've never, under any circumstance, ever tried to take on WoW like a lot of other MMOs in the past have done. Said,
right, but I was just going to say, I do think that they need at some point, and maybe it is a little early. We still have time. But I think Rift is a really good example of a game, an IP that no one has ever heard of, came out, and wow, did they just like hit a current and a nerve with so many people that almost overnight, I remember when that happened, they released those We're Not Nazaroth commercials, and I totally commend them for going right for the jugular, because wow, talk about taking somebody else's IP and using it to your advantage to get attention, and boom, overnight, MMO players were just like, what's this Rift game? What's this Rift game? It's like, we were following it when it was like Heroes of Talara, and it wasn't even called Rift yet. We knew what it was, but like no MMO players did. And then overnight, it was like everybody wanted to play that game. I think WildStar's gotta come big. Because this ain't no small MMO. I mean, I don't know what the budget on this game is, but it definitely is not small. They got to be burning through some major cash.
They've been developing for 7 years.
Yeah, so they need some players.
I think that. For us and for a lot of the people who have been following WildStar, especially if you've been following it for a while, it felt like this convention season, it felt like, okay, this is the point when they're going to start the marketing push. It's going to go. And then they did the pushback. And I think that the marketing team was like, we got to say some of this. We got to pull some of it back because we're going to need it when we actually do the actual marketing push later. And so it felt like really just like...
Well, ask Gary. He and I were both at E3, and they had a very underwhelming.
Well, I meant
Mark and I were like the two guys that
they kept saying PAX and Gamescom over and over and over. PAX and Gamescom. We're gonna have big stuff there. We're gonna do this. We saw like the cutout of like what was probably a Macari medic. They were getting ready and to do it, and then like they were just like, oh wait, gotta pull back. And I feel like that's what a lot of the people who are watching and who are following this game are just feeling. They're feeling like, what happened? Like,
I'm sure their PR and marketing team are on it. They've got a plan, and even if they, encounters pushback and stuff, they've got it all in the pipeline. It's like, but we don't even know a date yet. We don't know what the pushback even is.
Through strategic partnering and through strategic messaging, I think that they're going to be able to get their message out through the fan sites, through really popular guilds, through professional sites like,
Well, here's a question for you. Like right now, what's the elevator pitch right now? Like, how do you get the average person who's never heard about WildStar hyped right now in 10 to 15 seconds? Why would I want to play this game?
I mean, I think that's Jeremy Gaffney's job, and I think that's his message, and then he definitely can do it and bring the passion.
But I think we need to be able to also be able to say that message. Like that's the thing. Like it's also everybody else who can permeate and tell their friends and gamers to tell other gamers. Like
So through some meetings that we have planned when I'm out in LA tomorrow, over the next couple of days, you and myself, you being Gary, hopefully we will get some messaging, right? Hopefully we will get some information. Hopefully we will get to be able to take things to the next level, right? That's my personal hope, right?
Same here. I mean, we're excited. We wouldn't be doing a show if we weren't excited.
Like Izgoo in chat is saying, like, show them a DevSpeak video if you want to hype people. And I think that works for people like us who are like following games and like care about
average
the
gamer doesn't watch
like that. But the average gamer is like, they're not going to sit through that. It's too long. It's like, yeah, it's just not the right. What is WildStar video is coming close, but they just need to cut it shorter. Like it is hard to fit that into an elevator talk. Like they got buzzwords, layered content, telegraphs. Like how do you limited actions? How do you fit that into something cool?
That's not the elevator pitch. Like I said, the one thing I could think of that they still have going for them, which touches a portion of the community, and I guarantee it's probably most of the people watching this show, is bringing back 40-man raids, right? Like they've got that where you can tell an MMO player, like, hey man, they're going back to that 40-man raid thing you used to in World of Warcraft and you loved it. Like that's the thing. Still got to get stronger. I think the marketing message still needs to be a bit stronger.
Let's hope that next Gamebreaker, next Monday, we'll have some of the answers to that, or over the next few weeks, relative to some of the meetings that are going to go down in the next 48 hours, right?
Let's see.
Let's hope that we can accomplish that, because at the same time, we want to help grow the game. We want to help grow the space. We want to have something to play at the end of the day, right? So it's up to us.
Mark Taylor, follow him on Twitter at GuildUmbra. Right onto Twitter, GuildUmbra, and right here on UDSP every Monday at 3 PDT. Don't confuse it
Shout
with
out to Shivastra.
There you go.
Just my shout out.
Huge shout out. Farhan Siddiqui, follow him at Unindel, UNINDEL on the Twitter, and right here, Crunch. Can you start bringing graphs and crunching numbers to the show soon, please?
I'll work on it.
That'd be great.
We'll get it there.
All right. You can follow me at Gary Gannon, follow Gamebreaker TV, Gamebreaker TV. We do the show live every Monday at 3, so come on over for the live show. It's a lot of fun. And make sure you go to WildStar.tv, which is our all WildStar site all day, all the time. I don't plug that enough. WildStar.tv. We launched that quite a while ago. And of course, if you guys are getting hyped for WildStar, we have launched the Gamebreaker Nation, which is a global cross-gaming guild. So everyone is welcome. Go to GamebreakerNation.com. I've just started talking about it. I know we've broken over 500 people already. I don't know how many more. So it's growing by leaps and bounds every minute. Go over to GamebreakerNation.com. Yeah.
Do you have a way for guilds to have alliances with Gamebreaker Nation?
No, we're just griefers. We just want to Guild Umbra. We will beat you. We'll work that out. We don't know yet.
We'll think about it.
This is new. This is new for us. So maybe. Yeah, sure. Possibly. But check it out. Go over to Apply. And you'll get the Mumble info, and you'll get to hang out in the Mumble channel, all kinds of stuff. And there's a lot more news coming down the pipe for GamebreakerNation.com as well. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for more UDSP.